Fight against the COVID-19 outbreak is a tough one, and Arizona leaders are doing everything they can to try to keep people safe. Now, the number, though, of confirmed COVID cases continues to rise in our state. Team 12's Matt Yurus is live this morning outside the Arizona Department of Health Services. So, Matt, where are the latest numbers right now, and what is the governor saying about his stay-at-home order?
Rachel, you said they continue to rise, which we expected to some degree as more people are tested, but the jump is significant over the weekend. I just want to flag first before we get to those numbers, the governor has put more restrictions on business heading into this week. We're going to get to that in just a moment. Back to the numbers now. The Arizona Department of Health Services here behind me reporting more than 2,000 cases, 2,269 to be exact. That's 250 more cases than reported Saturday. Sadly, 12 more people have died, bringing the state total to 64. More than half of those cases are here in Maricopa County, 1,326. The two groups most impacted in the county, 20 to 44-year-olds and seniors. Navajo Nation as well has been hit particularly hard. According to its president, there are now 354 cases, up from 33 Saturday alone. 14 confirmed deaths there. And back to these tightening restrictions on business after mounting pressure, Governor Ducey is now taking salons, barbershops, massage, and tattoo parlors off the list of essential services. The executive order says violators could face misdemeanor charges, but they'll get a chance to comply first. Just a reminder, the stay-at-home order continues through the end of the month unless you are those essential services like groceries or takeout food from restaurants and gas stations, of course. Last note here, at 9 a.m. from the Department of Health, we do expect more numbers to be released regarding how many confirmed coronavirus cases. So stay with 12 News for the very latest. Live in Phoenix, Matt Yurus, 12 News.